Jane Thistlethwaite. I work in the pharmaceutical industry for Novartis. So my job is I'm a Senior Director of Global Pipeline Strategy, which sort of translated means I work on our very early pipeline products, so things that are coming out of the labs into development and first trials in humans, and I look at across the pipeline to sort of pull together a business strategy and a focus on across the disease area how we can have the biggest impact. So outside of COVID, where it basically means sitting in front of a computer, which has not been a lot of fun, it's really varied day to day. I meet with a lot of different project teams who are running the trials that are ongoing on one level, and then I meet a lot with the business side of the organization as well to sort of figure out how we pull things forward. So it's a real mixture of individual sort of research work and looking at the current landscapes, project teams to keep the projects moving, and sort of overall strategy looking at the business perspective from a broader viewpoint as well. It's I think in many ways I support others more than I have them supporting me, because my role really brings a lot of the different projects together to try and think about how we can map everything out as a larger organization. So I think I support the project teams more than they support me. That said, I do have analysts that I work with a lot, so there's a lot of research, market research, the analysts looking at sort of forecasting and business cases, and also competitive intelligence, who really have a look on the outside environment and what other companies and other research is ongoing, so we stay up to date with where the sort of latest news and information is coming from. So lots of different things. As a kid, I worked every summer as either in restaurants, in sort of local cafes. I did retail, bartending to get through college. And then as I got further into my undergraduate work, I worked in the microbiology labs of sort of local organizations and learned a lot about the pharmaceutical industry kind of from the ground up through summer work, I guess. We were lucky enough to have a manufacturing plant in my hometown, and I worked there as well a couple of times. No, I had no idea. I always loved biology, so I always wanted to kind of get into healthcare in some way. I originally thought I'd be working in a lab, but realized very quickly that probably wasn't my best focus, and like being stuck in the lab all day, and too many of my experiments failed. So I was really looking for a way to do something a little bit different and to bring in the healthcare knowledge and the science, but with the business side as well. So I kind of landed in pharma partly because there was a big organization in my hometown that I started working in, and then moved through various different aspects of the industry to get to where I am now. But I feel like it pulls everything that I've done together, so I'm really pleased where I ended up. You probably guessed I did biology. From around 18, we specialised a little earlier in the UK, so I started at 18 with a real focus on the sciences, and then did biology as my undergrad. It can, and it's one of the things I love about pharma. There's a huge range of sizes of organizations. So I work for Novartis, which is one of the biggest pharma companies worldwide, huge employer in the area and globally. And I actually come from the UK, so I've moved with them as well. But you can also do very similar roles in small biotechs, everything from a startup with one product to where we are with Novartis. So it's a real big industry with a lot of diversity. So from benefit side, there's a huge amount of flexibility and opportunity. So I came from the UK, I've worked in the US organization, I'm currently in a global position, and I've moved through sort of commercial roles and more development roles. So the opportunity to do different things in the same organization is huge when it's this big. From a challenging perspective, there's things move a lot slower. I think there's much more dynamic movement in it's kind of more exciting in a small organization where you're all after one goal. I think the politics grows with the number of people, and getting things done can sometimes take time in a really big organization. But I think the opportunities do outweigh that generally, at least from my perspective. So a commercial role is really looking at the business side, so the end goal, I guess, is sales and marketing, they're sort of more traditional roles. Development is the research side, so kind of bringing the drugs through from the first stages of research into testing in small numbers and then big studies and getting them to a point of approval. And we put them in those two buckets just to keep them a little bit separate, because it's very different aims, and very different in the way we have to run our business as well. It doesn't. There are some roles in the industry obviously that do, and I work with a lot of physicians who are medics, but for my role, no, it doesn't. So it varies. I mean, I think at the end of the day, everything we do is for patients. I work in oncology, so cancer patients are really always our end goal. But from a day to day, I have a lot of internal customers that I work with from within the organization, and also physicians who treat oncology in all of the different countries that I work with. Salary. So I think that I'm lucky. Novartis is a company that really values your impact on society as well, and has a big policy around flexibility. So while I do generally, outside of current times, work in the office, the hours can be really long, but there is an expectation that you can manage your own time and that you have the flexibility to work in a time that suits you. So I'm lucky. I'm kind of local as well, but if I needed to be somewhere, there's no problem with leaving the office or taking time out and doing other activities. They're also very supportive of volunteering. I'm a Girl Scout troop leader and do other things in the community where I can, and I have 2 kids that play sport, so there's never been an issue with being at games and things that I want to be at. But at the end of the day, you do have a job to do, so there's an expectation you'll do that in your own time. But I think in flexibility wise, it's great, and I think from the skills that you learn that are very really far reaching, and I think it's been a great way of meeting others in the community as well. I love the meeting of the science with the business. I feel like, and it just makes an impact. I think at the end of the day, everything that I do at some point brings a new treatment to patients who have cancer, and to me that gets me out of bed every morning. It's really inspiring. I just think there's always so much more you can do. Like, I think it's kind of daunting to think, however you look at healthcare, like there are so many things that need more drugs, more therapies, more overall care, and it really brings it home to you when you think about where we are now with COVID and where everyone's living through. So I feel like if you look big picture, it's kind of daunting, but if you take it step by step and you look at the things that you have done, you can get there and you can make a difference. I wish I knew how much, and I'm sure it's the same with any big company, I wish I knew how many different jobs there were out there. So I feel like when we're in school, we learn, you can be a doctor, you can work in a lab, you can be a salesman, or all these different roles, and I feel like every organization has so many nuances on all of those big buckets that we don't learn about. So I think something like this is fantastic. So the job I'm in right now, I've moved through a ton of different roles in pharma. I started out running late stage studies, and by running I mean sort of monitoring the data that went into them. We called them a clinical research associate, and then I moved into some sales work and marketing, and I've done sort of a number of different roles. I said before, the different things that you can do within a big organization, and I think having the big view of the organization across the sort of path of taking a drug from being a chemical compound to being something that's used in patients, knowing that pathway a little bit led me to be able to pull all that together to be into the role I'm in right now. So for me, and I guess to summarize, it's kind of trying out different things and the breadth of experience, and I wasn't ever fixed on wanting to do one particular thing. I was really interested in finding out all the different elements that went into making the business succeed, and finding out sort of several of those has gotten me to kind of where I am today. I guess my advice would be to think about, if it's something you want to do, think about what's motivating you. And for me, it's the science and the business side coming together. So I would say look at all of the opportunities and think about, I guess I kind of ended up here because of a love of biology and sort of following that. Keep an open mind would be the biggest thing. There's also many routes into a career in healthcare or in pharmaceuticals. I work with doctors and pharmacists and lab technicians and salespeople and marketing professionals. So it's not like you have to have one area that you follow. It's really follow your passion, and if it's an area you want to be in, sort of find the route in that meets where you want to be as well, and what your areas of interest are. So if you're in New Jersey, I would say talk to people. There are so many people in this area that work in this industry, and I think the people who work in pharma or even the related, there's a ton of agencies that support us from a marketing, advertising, research perspective. I would talk to some of those contacts and get their perspective as well, maybe.